So BuzzCity is here today with Jason. What's your last name?
Sylvestre.
Dyson Yobb.
And Dyson, sorry?
Yobb. Y-O-B-B.
Y-O-B-B?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're both from Regina?
We are.
Yeah. Yes.
And you're comic book artists?
Yes.
Yes. And this is some of your work here?
Right.
Yeah. This is my independent publication is called Vape, and we have a valuable comics that both Jason and I submit for. It's published quarterly, and we do some submissions in there. I usually have about 7 pages an issue, and Jason's been doing
up to about
10
right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
doing an ongoing story that wrote out in the
right.
be collected later on.
Okay. You're a member of a collective, are you?
We are.
Valuable Comics, yes.
Valuable Comics, and how many would there be in that?
10, 11, yeah.
All local?
All local, yeah.
All local.
Well, we do have one submitter who's from Saskatoon. We have one who's actually moved down to San Diego. He's still submitting. Saskatchewan, and that gentleman started locally. So.
Are these serialized stories in these comics? Are they continued?
Quite a few of them are ongoing stories.
Yeah.
Mine is. Jason's is.
Mine is as well.
There's a few other artists like Alan Dawson, and who his is ongoing. Nephi's done a few ongoing, but they sort of shorter. And then we start something new.
Yeah, and then we have John McFadden, who does a lot of short story stuff where it's 1 or 2 page kind of gags and things like that. So it's a variety of different styles and tastes.
Keeley.
What Keeley does.
Yeah.
What sort of themes are dominant in your work?
Well, right now I'm doing my stuff seems to be kind of drawn towards old folk tales or mythology. I'm doing Jason in New York City. This was part of the Small Press Idol competition last year, and I got picked up for a publishing deal through a company in the States. They're actually printing my books. It's printed full color, it's all ages, and I've taken Jason from Jason and the Argonauts and dropped him into modern day New York City. So you've got an old Spartan warrior trying to adjust to life in modern times. And the story that I've got currently going through Valuable Comics is called Neko, and it's basically based on an old Japanese folktale where this poor guy gets taken over by an Oni, an old ghost, who tries to get him to right wrongs that are going on in the 1100s in Japan. So.
Are you influenced by manga and the Japanese style comics?
I'm kind of more influenced by Jack Kirby and people like that, but I do love to read manga and things like that. My style is probably closer to the more modern North American arts than it would be for the Japanese manga stuff.
Okay.
But I do pinch little bits here and there from it.
And what I'm hearing with Jason and the Argonauts, that reference to that sort of heroic kind of influence, is are you then, would I say you're influenced more by the American tradition of comics than by others?
I think so. I just like to do stories about heroes that are a little flawed. I don't like a perfect hero. Every hero that I draw or write about is very flawed in some way. They have some Achilles heel that is sort of taking them down a notch. But Jason, he's got that arrogance of being this old Greek Spartan. He's in this modern world. He doesn't speak the language. He doesn't understand the rules. He doesn't know what he can and can't do. And he's learning that he can't go around doing what he used to do because that's no longer acceptable where he is now. With Neko, you have a character who loses total control of himself at night, and he wakes up in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't know where he is, how he got there, what happened, why he's all beat up, and what's going on. So I like that kind of a flaw in characters.
So you're kind of working on the human condition here in a sense, aren't you?
Yeah.
And with influence of historical antecedents like Jason and other heroic characters.
Definitely.
Is that common with most people working in this genre here, or are there other iterations?
You draw from a lot of different sources. I know Dyson's story is a long ongoing fantasy tale. Yeah,
mine's mostly comic fantasy. It's nothing really taken to be too seriously. The valuable Questomatic, the valuable comics submission is ongoing series, 7 pages, Questomatic, and it's a fantasy comedy type serial, and it's meant to be more entertaining than anything. Whereas my Vape comic tends to pull a lot more from literary references, and I'm trying to make statements about social ideas such as like the anthropocentric belief of human sort of the universe revolving around human belief and ideals and questions and things like that, I guess. So it's sort of the influences I draw from.
Okay, okay. What sort of circulation is your work getting?
Well, Jason in New York City has sold 1,500 copies so far. So hopefully, if it keeps going as well as it's going, circulation will keep growing. But I think I have the advantage of having an American publisher, so my audience in the States is a lot bigger than it is up in Canada right now because they pushed it through the States. I mean, the publisher and distributor were both American, so they already have an established kind of group down there. Up in Canada, I'm selling books, but it's not selling as well as it was in the States, and it's probably because of the title as well. Jason in New York City has a lot more appeal to an American audience because of the name.
Yes.
But it's still catching on. I think what I'm finding really nice is that the kids are really grabbing onto it, and that's my audience that I'm trying to grab, so that's kind of nice to see.
Are you working with other people on your stuff? Are you inking it as well as telling the story?
The very first issue I did all by myself. The next few issues that are coming out are all being done by myself, as well as the script writer. Carson Downs is coming in to help write scripts for me. I have a colorist now who's taking over coloring, and I'm training somebody to do inking right now. So I've got a team kind of assembled now, which is really nice. I still do all the lettering myself. I'm trying to find somebody to do that for me, so I'm hoping to pass that task on to somebody else as they go on too.
So this is a collaborative effort then. Is it for you as well?
Well, no, Jason's much more established than I am. I just sort of started at the beginning of this year, and my comics are just nowhere near the distribution level his is as well. I sort of, at this point, I'm doing everything, writing, drawing. An issue takes me a long time to actually put together when trying to do a comic books, hold down a full-time job and family at the same time.
What informs your skills on this? How did you acquire the skill sets to do this?
Just started drawing when I was 5.
Yeah. I've been drawing since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Self-taught for cartoons. I started off, tracing pictures drawn by Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, all those guys. That's how I started learning, drawing Spider-Man and Hulk and stuff like that, and I just kept going.
Calvin and Hobbes, Bill Watterson.
Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
We all miss Calvin and Hobbes.
Huge influence on me.
Yeah.
And just until recently, I hadn't realized how much Dave Sim had such an influence on me until I started reading his stuff. I was like, oh, I can't believe how much Dave Sim does Cerebus, the collected volumes, and he's like a huge influence on me. Unbeknownst to me up until a couple of weeks ago, people kept telling me when I put out my comics, you must be a huge Dave Sim fan. I was like, well, I haven't really read his stuff, I guess. And then I started reading it, and I'm like, I am a huge Dave Sim fan. Look at this. That's exactly something that I would draw and write. And Cerebus himself kind of looks like my main character almost. So, anyway.
Do you know, in terms of the local scene, how popular are comics in Regina?
I'd say there's a re-interest in it. A lot of people our age are getting their kids interested in comics. I think the biggest push to that has been the resurgence of kid-friendly books. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, you couldn't really go into a comic book store with your 9 or 10-year-old kid and find a comic book that they could safely read because all of them were rated M, rated T, too dark a story, too mature. I know I had that problem when my son was only 9 or 10. I couldn't find a comic book I could buy unless I went to the back issues and bought stuff from the 80s. And now there's a bunch of new kid-friendly books out there. There's the Boom Comics done by, well, it was a Disney group, and now they're going to be doing kid-friendly books for a different company. Marvel and DC have both put out kid-friendly lines, and that's really put a big resurgence, I think, onto getting kids into comics. Plus there's things like Bone, where Jeff Smith has done a real kid-friendly book. And Scholastic picked him up, and now it's in the schools. Once you get comic books into the school system again, kids start going, hey, this is great stuff. It gets them away from video games, and they get back into it.
So that segues then into another area of discussion, and that is censorship in comics. During the 50s, for example, there were codes and so on that were established and adhered to largely, and that was, I think, went away with the underground comic movement of the 60s and so on. How has that changed here? Is there a wider acceptance then here for comic books as a mainstream sort of cultural phenomena?
I think Valuable really speaks to that, actually. Such the variety that we get. We actually had after one submission was submitted, we actually sat down and we were like, okay, how family friendly do we want to make this issue, kind of thing. And as it turned out, we sort of made the decision to not make it, to sort of open it up and let that happen, you know. But I think that is it much more accepted here? Well, you know, you have to kind of gauge your audience. Be very careful about.
I think you're definitely aiming your book at a particular.
Jason's book sells much more better than mine does because he's just all kid friendly, whereas I caution my audience 12 and older kind of thing. So a lot of kids who have come by today have sort of picked up Jason's.
So you're reaching a wide demographic then. You're going from, I guess, school-age kids right up to adults.
Yeah.
And you're writing to those various markets.
So one thing I find really nice is that I'm getting emails from adults who say, I picked up your book and I liked it, and then I give it to my kid and he really liked it. So it's kind of nice to know that, okay, great, I've hit my target, was to make it entertaining for the adults as well as for the kids. The adults like the idea of having a Spartan running around New York City. The kids don't get some of the jokes, but it's all done in a kid-friendly tone so that they don't have to worry about them getting the jokes and things like that. So I think that's really great. At my last book signing that I did, I had a guy there with his son, and they actually picked my book up off the shelf, and it was sitting right next to Superman. And the dad was just stunned. He was like, I can't believe he picked Jason New York City over the Superman comic book. And I was more stunned, I think, than he was. But I think it just goes to show that the kids recognize when something's done in a certain style, it just appeals to them, and that's what they want to see. Whereas the Superman book is drawn hyper realistic, all these cross-hatching lines, and it looks way too serious. And you've got me. So.
You mentioned the school system. You mentioned that at least one comic book is now in the school system. Are you working then with the Department of Education to get this stuff sort of on curriculum-friendly basis?
Not on purpose. A lot of teachers have had me come into the classroom to do art lessons and things like that, and I get to do a lesson on comic books in the class. And the main goal of that is just to get them learning about the different narratives that are available to them and get them enlightened to what's out there.
Good resource would be Alan Dotson. He's going to be at Comic Readers downtown about 2 o'clock. And he does Comic Jam. He teaches comics.
Right. And you guys will be at the Cathedral Arts Festival.
Yeah. So that'll be...
Yeah, let's talk a bit about that. Where are you located then at the festival? Do you know yet?
No, you'll have to speak to Alan for that.
Okay.
He's organizing it.
I think it's posted on the festival website. On their, they have their schedule up. So
okay, so people can look for you there.
Yeah. See, hold on. Let me just do it. CVAV.ca.
Comic Jam. Yeah.
Comic Jam. Yeah.
That's it there.
Okay. Comic Jam.
Yeah.
Cathedral Festival.
Right.
2011, folks.
Be there.
Be there.
Any other comments you want to make?
Yeah, people if they are interested, they can look me up online. I've got jason@nyc.com is my website address.
3 minutes.
And I'm also on Facebook, so if they want to throw me a friend invite, I've got lots of people on there. That's how they find out about what I've got up and coming and what's happening. We will be at the Winnipeg Comic Con in October, and then I'm also going to Comic Con in New York City, so lots of stuff going on.
How long the Valuable Comics Collective? What's the date that actually started? How long have you guys?
Established a long time ago. We have issues spanning back here 2007. I think it was earlier than that, 2005.
Okay.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So, it's only just been the last 2 years that we've been consistently publishing quarterly. So, to speak to that, I think that's a real renaissance in the comic book industry.
Yes.
Is these guys and like we know of other local artists who we would like to bring on board to Valuable. So if you at BuzzCity manage to generate that interest, we would definitely love submitters. So
absolutely, yeah.
And we hope that will occur.
Yeah. I think we're good.
Okay, guys, do you have a website, or is there a Facebook or a website presence that...
Valuable Comics is on Facebook. It's not regularly updated. It will be.
It's something that's coming. It's in the works. So but Jason definitely.
I'm all over Facebook. So,
Yeah.
I've got a Jason New York City fan page, and of course I'm on there as well. And I'm always updating people as well.
Sure.
I'm working with another group in the States doing a graphic novel project for Afghanistan veterans and things like that. So we've got our hands on lots of different areas that we're doing stuff. So
Cool.
we're busy.